Hello everyone, it's Mr. Pierce. Today we're going to be working on subtracting fractions and mixed numbers from a whole number. What we see on this first page is two problems that say the exact same thing. 1 minus 7/10. Let's start first with the one that contains the decimal. In order to set this up, we would of course line them up by the decimal. Well, where is the decimal in one whole? It is after the 1, so it would look like this. 1 whole with a decimal, and then 0.7 right below. Now, we must know in this situation, of course, we would put a 0 in the tenths place. Can I say 0/10 minus 7/10? The answer is no. So if I go over to the whole number, I can borrow or regroup. So if I cross that out, I now have 0 ones left, but that 1 whole that I borrowed or regrouped becomes 10/10. 10/10 minus 7/10 is 3/10. So our answer is 0.3 or 7/10. When we look at the one that has a whole number minus a fraction, we must do the same thing. What we should remember is 1 whole is the same as 10/10. Okay, 1 whole is 10/10. So we can simply write this one as 10/10 like so. Okay, and we can bring over the 7/10 and subtract, and we get 3/10. Well, you might ask me, how did I choose to go 10/10? Well, in order to say that 1 whole was 10/10, I simply looked at the denominator of the bottom fraction, 7/10. Okay, I saw the denominator was 10, so I knew that 10/10 was equal to 1 whole. In this next example, we see 1 whole minus 2/3. Well, I should realize that 1 whole is the same as 3/3. Now, how did I get the 3/3? I looked at the denominator of the bottom fraction. So if 1 whole is 3/3, I simply write it as 3/3. I bring over the 2/3. I subtract, and 3/3 minus 2/3 is 1/3. In this next example, we see 8 minus 1 4/5. Okay? I cannot simply do this problem and write down 7 4/5 because that would be illogical. So what I have to do is I have to first of all borrow 1 or regroup from the 8. If I borrow 1 from the 8, it becomes a 7. Okay? Now, that 1 whole that I took away would be the same as 5/5. So how did I get that 5/5? I looked at the denominator of the bottom one and saw that it was a 5. I know that 5/5 is equal to 1 whole. So 8 is equal to 7 5/5. Now I can simply bring over the 1 4/5 and again subtract. 5/5 minus 4/5 is 1/5. And 7 minus 1 is 6. So our answer is 6 1/5. In this next example, we see 9 minus 4/6. I cannot simply subtract 4/6 from 9. So once again, I'm going to have to rename the 9. So I'm going to borrow 1 from the 9. It will become an 8. Now I look at the denominator of the bottom one and I see that it is a 6. So I'm going to say that 9 is the same as 8 and 6/6. Again, I chose 6/6 because I know that is equal to 1 whole. I also know that the bottom one, the bottom fraction, had a denominator of 6. So if 6/6 is 1 whole plus the 8, I would get the 9. Now I bring over the 4/6 and I simplify. I subtract first. 6/6 minus 4/6 is 2/6. There's where I know that will simplify. 8 minus nothing is 8. Okay, so now I have to simplify this problem. So 8 and 2/6, I know that both 2 and 6 are divisible by 2. That would be the greatest common factor. So my answer is going to be 8. I take the greatest common factor and divide both the numerator and denominator by it, and I get 1/3. So this answer is 8 1/3. In this next problem, we see 3 minus 1 and 12/16. Okay? We cannot just say 3 minus 1 is 2 and get 2 and 12/16. That would be a failed strategy. In order to do this, we are going to have to borrow or regroup from the whole number. So I'm going to take 1 away from the 3. That will make the 3 a 2. Now I took away 1 whole so that I could subtract. When I look at the bottom fraction, I see that the denominator is 16. So I'm going to say that 3 is the same as 2 and 16/16. Okay, if 16/16 is 1 whole plus the 2, I would of course get the 3. Now I'm going to bring over the 1 and 12/16, and I am going to subtract. 16/16 minus 12/16 is 4/16. 2 minus 1 is 1. So 1 and 4/16. Will that simplify? The answer, of course, is yes. The greatest common factor of 4 and 16 is 4. So I'm going to divide both 4 and 16 by 4, and my final answer is going to be 1 and 1/4. In this final example, we see 19 minus 6 and 3/4. Again, we cannot just say 19 minus 6 is 13, and the answer would be 13 and 3/4. That would be a failed strategy. What we need to do is borrow or regroup. Okay, so in order to do this, I'm simply going to take 1 away from the 19 and make that an 18. Now I took away 1 whole. Okay, I noticed that I'm thinking about that 1 whole, that the bottom fraction is 3/4. So I should realize that the denominator is 4. So something that is equal to 1 whole with a denominator of 4 is 4/4. So 19 is the same as 18 and 4/4. Now I bring over the 6 and 3/4 and I subtract. 4/4 minus 3/4 is 1/4. 18 minus 6 is 12. 1/4 will not simplify. Anytime our numerator is 1, it is already in lowest terms. So our final answer is 12 and 1/4. Good luck on subtracting fractions and mixed numbers from a whole number. I'm sure that you will find it is not that daunting of a task.